Hello everyone, this is Japan's Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 897 for the 8th of August. And I have already published the frontline changes report, and do check it out for the latest frontline changes. If you don't want to listen to the analysis or the things that is happening in places where frontline changes are not happening. So there is still frontline changes since the recording of the frontline changes report. At Luzovatsky, there is there's a geolocation of Russian forces in the Adivka front, south of Vodyzenka, north of Luzovatsky. Russian forces geolocated in the new location, signifying some Russian progress in this area of the front line towards Timofeyevka region. So small frontline changes. So I think that's about it for this frontline changes. Where after the frontline changes report. So anyway, in the strategy tactical reporting, we're going to go clockwise direction because I think everyone is more interested in the KURSK offensive, most interested in that, and I think that is also where the most happening things are happening right now. So we go into the KURSK front. At the KURSK front, you can see that this tentacle has become a blob of turmeric, monster kind of thing. It's getting very, very complicated as the Ukrainians launch attack in 3 different directions. Generally speaking, there's one direction towards Korenevo. There's one going down this highway to, in the direction of the nuclear power plant, and then there's another direction moving all the way to how do you call this? Bolshoi Sodatskoye. So this direction moved towards Kursk city. So this is the 3 main fronts, the 3 main direction the Ukrainian forces are pushing. So at the maximum extent, we have fighting reported at Snagost, Korenevo, Oigovka, Kremyanoe, and then down this highway all the way to this place called Anastasievka. So that's there. And then at this highway, the furthest point is this Bolshoi Sodoskoye. So that's the maximum extent. There is also fighting reported at Martinovka, at some locations within the this smaller region here, in the area where of this what is called, what is this place called? Sudja. Yeah, in the Sudja area. So I will cover that as we zoom in later. So this is the general extent, and so even though the mapping seems like the Ukrainian forces have seemingly captured a lot of grounds, this is not firm control. This is basically the maximum extent of where the Ukrainian forces have went, and there might actually be Russian forces, militias, police forces in the rear positions where the Ukrainians just simply bypassed and they just went forward. So so do take all these front lines with a pinch of salt, because from the information that I've seen, it looks pretty the Ukrainians not controlling all these grounds. They basically just moving everywhere. So it is very similar to the Balaklia offensive. The only main difference with the Balaklia offensive, which is maybe for those that are not watching DPA, you will probably know it as the Ukrainian Kharkiv offensive in 2022, in September 2022. That in DPA's term, we call it the Balaklia offensive, and I believe that Raiba, the pro-Russian source, also call it the Balaklia offensive. No, interestingly, we both use the same words, and because that's where the breakthrough actually started. During the Balaklia offensive, the Russian forces actually does not exist generally in Ukraine anymore. All the front line is mostly meant by the volunteers and the militias from Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic. Most of the Russian forces has withdrawn because the contract was over, which is why they actually did the partial mobilization, because there is no more troops that they can actually just deploy into Ukraine on top of whatever defense posture that they need to maintain the sovereignty. So which is why there was a partial mobilization on the Russian side, And so the Ukrainian side, they have the forces, the attack with a majority foreign legion-led forces, which they basically blitz through undefended grounds. So that's why all the tentacles happened, and the Russians just do not have the troops. They do not have the reserve forces to actually fight back. So they have to fall back, and then they continue to fall back until they cross the Oskil River, go all the way to the Zerabets River, and just off Crimea, just off Sviatove, which is where the front lines stop moving, because that's when the Russian partial mobilization happened, and the first Russian forces, first mobilized forces, were sent to the front line without training. They basically just sent to the front line and just tried to stop the bleeding of the front line on the Russian side. So, and which is why in the early days there's a lot of complaints from the Russian forces that was mobilized. They didn't have training, immediately sent to the front line. A lot of disorganization, poor orders, poor commands was given to them. They were dropped off some point, and then they do not have transport or reinforcement or food or whatnot. A lot of drama during those days. That was because the Russians were reacting in a panic, generally speaking, because they just don't have the troops to defend the front line. They have to depend on the mobilized troops. The current situation is somewhat different. The Russian forces is already much more well-manned today. They have better equipment. However, this still represents a problem because, as I mentioned before, the Russian borders is not very, very defended. And I have said it more than a year ago. I said the Ukrainians should attack to conquer Belgorod. KURSK is a bit ambitious because it's a bit further, but the same situation remains. The Russians did not really heavily fortify their border region. So the Ukrainians just blitz through, and this is exactly what happened. Some rumors talking about the Russians were detected removing all the mines and whatnot, maybe preparing for a Sumy offensive, so the Ukrainians just broke through. I think that's not the case, because the Russians, I don't think they really do much mining of the border, because most of the region in the border is civilian villages. So you put mines, you actually also create problems for yourself. I don't think the Russians really fortify their borders at all, because they either don't believe the Ukrainians will invade, or they are daring the Ukrainians to invade. And of course, if you invade, there is other circumstances, other reactions the Russians could do. So losing some certain grounds, like what's happening right now, is part of the Russians' way of doing things. Be it from World War II to dealing with Napoleon, it's always been like this. So the Russians always trade space for time, and this is the situation right now we are looking at. But I'm not saying that the Ukrainians did the wrong thing, although I do think that they did it too late. They should have done this 1 year ago. So if they're going to do this now, they better have enough reinforcement to keep the offensive going. If not, then it's going to be a big problem. But like I mentioned, the forces that is currently invading into the KURSK region seems to be not that solid, in the sense that it's not all the front line that is Ukrainian troops defending. It seems to be sporadic. There's a lot of hunter or recon units or vanguard units that is driving everywhere, moving here and there to confuse the intelligence and the command and control on the Russian side. So that's currently what's happening right now over in the KURSK offensive. It's still early days of the offensive. It's actually way more similar to the Russians' initial invasion into Ukraine, where in late February 2022, when the Russians first pushed into Ukraine towards Kiev, towards Sumy, towards Chernihiv, towards Kharkiv, towards the Kherson region, towards Zaporizhia. That was the time where you don't even know where the Russians went. And that was when I started mapping this war, and that's when the DPA's coverage of the Ukraine war started, because nobody knows what's happening. And I was basically trawling through a lot of sources, through Twitter, through all sort of media I can find to plot in the mapping and find where the Russians have went. So now we are seeing very similar situation where a lot of fog of war, a lot of very vague information. So this is something that I want to highlight. So don't get carried away, and don't get too excited. But it's pretty exciting, to be honest. I think it's very exciting. especially for the pro-Ukrainian guys, they are dreaming big things. But if this happened when the front line, the rest of the front line is stagnant, largely stagnant, the Russians are not making much progress, and then this happened, I think I would have been a bit more excited for the Ukrainians. But however, the reality is that a lot of the front line, the Ukrainians are falling back. They are losing grounds, especially even in heavily fortified regions. And then now they do this, then the circumstances is actually very, very different. So anyway, we continue on the situation report. So anyway, I was talking about the situation. So it's actually part of the situation report. So so we move. There's basically the western flank and then the eastern flank. Maybe I can talk about like this, western, northern, and eastern flank. Maybe we do this. So over at the western flank, so we have all these capture that we have already reported yesterday, and from Ukrainians have a firm line, probably around Obukovka to Lyubomovka, and stretching to Novoivanovka, and to Leonidovo. So from this area here, the Ukrainians actually attack towards Kremyannoy to Olgovka, and they continue to go through the highway towards Korenevo, and then they attack towards Snagorsk. However, the problem now for the Ukrainians is that the Russians actually have a firm control at Korenevo, and this is where they put the plug on the Ukrainians, where the Ukrainians can go as far as they can go right now at this region here. And the Russians have also counterattacked over in Snagorsk, and which means that over Snagorsk region, this is also a firm Russian line. So the front line is starting to appear at this KURSK front, because it will take some time to develop as everything just happened. Just like the similar situation in the 2022 late February, when the Russians first pushed in, nobody knows where's the front line. Nobody knows where the Russians are, where the Ukrainians are holding the lines. And similar situation is being dealt during those days. And eventually, the Russians have to stop due to logistical problems, due to maybe the strategic plans that they have. So similarly, the Ukrainians were going to have the same thing. Wherever the logistics enable, the defense, the offensive is enabled, or the offensive planning they will eventually stop, and a firm front line will start to appear. However, on this the western side, the front line has seemingly started to appear, and there's a high chance that the Russians are also going to have the front line over at Olgovka and Kremyannoy. So this is the current situation right now over at these locations on the western front. Over south, on the south, there is some geolocation that came out from Creamy Caprice, geolocating earlier incidents where the Ukrainians are detected over in Karino and Svetlikovo. So yeah, I said Ukrainian names too much. I just automatically change it to Ukrainian. So other than that, in the latest Russian report, there is also reports of shelling over at Darino, at Gogolevka, and Melivoye. So there is a possibility that these are all the forward positions the Ukrainians are holding. This is where their forward operating positions are. Maybe this is where the Ukrainians are launching attacks from. Though we go into the northern flank. In the northern flank, the furthest point the fighting was being reported is at Anastasievka. So this is reported by DVA majors, and then by Ryba repeating two majors reports, and then Ryba then talked about this. They talk about 15 kilometers south of Lgov. So Lgov is over here, and if 15 kilometers south is actually exactly more or less around this region here, Kromsky Biki, or maybe in the Anastasievka region. So the fighting is around this area here, and of course you can see that the geography here is very complicated, so it's very hard to tell where the fighting is actually happening. So these are all very vague, and this is not firm capture. This is just simply the Ukrainians drive down the road. So this is just something to note. Some geolocation of Ukrainian forces was geolocated in the northwest of Kosevtsa. So Ukrainian forces definitely have at least arrived at this area here as they try to push through. And you can see that the fact that they are moving off-road means that they're deliberately trying to complicate the operation, the command and control, to let the Russians keep guessing where the Ukrainians are. So if they keep moving in this kind of a weird situation, then it's very hard for the Russians to keep track of where the Ukrainian forces are. And if they move down the road, there's a high chance that the Ukrainians may appear behind them. So this is the this is the good way of fighting. This is called maneuver warfare. So anyway, on this eastern flank, the Ukrainian forces go further over at Bolshoi, and Sodatskoye. So Bolshoi, Sodatskoye, and there is information of Ukrainian capturing of Kruglik, and fighting was reported over at Martinovka. There is no firm confirmation that the Ukrainians actually captured it. There is some fighting around here. According to Ryba, they say that the Russian forces was distracted over this area here while the Ukrainians continued to push down the highway. So as we move towards the Sudzha, if we move closer and zoom in Sudzha, according to the Russian reporting, the Ukrainian forces have basically captured most of the entire thing of Sudzha. However, I can't even call it a firm capture because journalists happen to drive in from Bolshoi Sodatskoye, basically down this highway. The journalists drive down and basically went in, and and then civilians actually was also reportedly driving all around the place, able to do their shopping and everything. So it's like weird. So we shall see whether this information is accurate or not. There is reports coming from the Russian side saying that the Ukrainians have captured the Mirny and Budarevka. So Ukrainian forces basically have basically spanned out in this way. And in the early of the day, there was fighting along this entire line here. So this entire line was actually under attack. So in Kinyazit, 1 Kinyazit and 2 Kinyazit. So basically the Ukrainians was attacking around this area here. They allegedly captured Kozachia Loknia and then fight over at Bogdanovka. So that was the initial line where the front line was. And then after that, the Russians reported that the Ukrainians break through even further. So which is why you can see that this update here and this update here is it's a separate polygon, because this information came at different times. And then reinforcement is already reported that the Ukrainians are sending equipment to Sudzha. And there's also some rumors of Ukrainian forces are setting up some kind of like a Surovikin line sort of thing in the captured territory. Although I would say take it with a pinch of salt because I feel like that feels very ambitious. But who knows? Maybe the Ukrainians really want to stay here. And further geolocation of Ukrainian forces over in the round Sudzha region on the eastern part, and also in the southwest of Molovoy. Yep. So this is the current situation over in the KURSK front. Things is still not very settled. The only settled part seems to be around the western front. This seems to be pretty settled right now, but we are still trying to figure out all these things. I will be doing a separate report again for the KURSK front as I'm going to dig through the latest information and do a latest update. So stay tuned for it. This is the DPA War channel, so I will post the report on the main channel. So do subscribe both sides. So anyway, this is the KURSK situation. So according to Ryba, they also mentioned that based on their analysis, the unit's involvement was the 82nd and the 80th Separate Airborne Assault Brigade, with the support of the 22nd and the 61st Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. In addition, they also have supports from the 150th Separate Mechanized Brigade, 5th Separate Assault Brigade, 151st Separate Air Assault Brigade, 24th Separate Assault Brigade, all include in this war, this operation. So it's a huge operation. It's nothing like the Belgorod offensive, which is done by the SBU or SBU commanded units, which are not really part of the Ukrainian military. So this is the first real Ukrainian military offensive. So previously it was done by the defense intelligence unit. So it's like a separate arm. So you can see that the when you send in the real army, they can get much more progress, rather than the Belgorod offensive, which is like, you know, more like a mosquito bite kind of thing. So anyway, that's all. Further south, there is geolocation of a Russian airstrike near Turatotye, around here. So, and that's about it for this Kursk front. And when we go into the to the Kharkiv front, in this is also part of the Sumy region. The Russian forces, the command in this region here that was previously defending the Grivoron region, where the Ukrainians launched this offensive in the Belgorod region, this command seems to react on their own accord, and they have launched attack in two different places. They have captured Lukashivka according to the Russian information, and they have also captured Sonesky Kozachok. So the Russians have launched a counter-offensive in these two areas here. I believe this is just acting as a diversion. There is no indication that the Russians launched this as a major offensive, taking advantage of the Ukrainian distraction over in the Kursk offensive. So, but we shall see whether this will develop into something else. But they have recaptured Sonesky Kozachok for the third time. So they basically entered and left. So this is like a third time that they have done this. So at least that's what Ryba said. No, from my memory, is maybe the second time. But no, there was a rumored second time, and then no, I cannot confirm that. So this is like according to certain information, this is the third time they have captured this border region. So let's see how this goes. Over at the rest of the Kharkiv front, there's nothing over in the Lipsy sector. The fighting is mainly over at the Voschansk. And at the Voschansk region, the Battle of Voschansk just simply continues. There is not much updates regarding anything happening around here. So even the Kharkiv front has really went quiet. Either quiet or simply nobody cares to talk about it. So that's it from the Kharkiv front. We move into the Kupiansk front. At the Kupiansk front, Russian forces continue to attack in two different flanks. Over in the Sinkivka region, they're fighting at Sinkivka and Petropavlivka. There's geolocation of Ukrainian forces over in Petropavlivka, and in this is the Zagorokivka region. So that's about it. Very usual. We have been seeing this almost every day. Russian forces are attacking also at Tebaivka and towards Gluchivka. And Ukrainian forces are geolocated nearby, hit by Russian shelling over just off Pivshani. So we know that the front line didn't really go that far. So that's it from this area. Further south, over the Svetove front, we have fighting reported in two different sectors, Stemakivka and in this Novoyehorivka. So the Russians attack in two different locations, geolocation of Ukrainian forces just off Stemakivka getting shelled. So seemingly just suggests that the front line did not change. Over in the Kremina front, at the Kremina front, Russian forces attack at Makievka, Nevsky, towards Novosadove, Terny, as well as in the Serebyansky forestry. And this is a very usual thing. Airstrikes hit Liman, and that's about it. Nothing special. Ukrainian forces geolocated in this area simply confirms that the front line is indeed in that region. Over the Siversk front, Siversk offensive continues with Russians' attack at Verkhamokanyamsky, Sperne, Ivano-Darivka, and Vimka. So this front line continues to be very aggressive around this area, but we do not have any frontline changes to report on this area. And at Verkhamokanyamsky, Russian airstrike also was reported. So you can see that despite all this seeming major crisis in Kursk, the Russians did not spare the use of air force in any other fronts, or do this massive reaction, knee-jerk reaction into sending troops to Kursk to defend the homeland. It did not happen. The airstrikes, the air force continue to operate as per their special military operations demands, and they totally ignore everything that's happening in Kursk. And the Kursk have their own units that will be deployed and react to the situation over there. The troops that is deployed in the special military operations remains, and I think this will be to a disappointment to the Ukrainian forces, because they would love to have the Russians getting distracted and redeploy to defend Kursk. And how the Russians react in Kursk will give us an indication of what is the real strength, the real numbers on the Russian side. Do they really have enough numbers to fight in so many front lines and defend their homelands? So we'll also know that in the event where there is World War III happening, if NATO forces push into Russia, would Russia know, while fighting in Ukraine, have the troops to defend actual Russia or not? Yeah, we shall see. Over in the Bakhmut front, Russian forces are attacking Kharkovsk in the Kalinina region towards Chasiv and in the Ivaniske region. So that's about it from this area in the Bakhmut. So the push continues, or at least no, the attack seemingly still pushed towards Chasiv area. So let's see. Nothing at the south. Over at the New York front, we still have fighting reported in the two sectors, in the Thorax and the New York sector. In the Thorax sector, Russian forces are attacking at Pivnishny towards Thorax and in the Zalizny region. Russian forces geolocated in these two locations, particularly in this one, the Russian forces retake some of this ground that was lost in this geolocation that the Ukrainian forces landed soldiers in the front line. So this may be a bad news, which means that those soldiers that was chopped off by the vehicle, by the Ukrainian vehicle, might be killed off, or they may just have run away from position. So that's about it. Anyway, it's not very far. The Ukrainians dropped their forces here, and the Russians were detected here. So if they realize that the situation is untenable, they started to run. I mean, they could have survived as well. So it's not like firmly that they will die. There's not a big distance. Over at the New York front, Russian forces are still pushing within the Battle of New York, and they are still fighting towards Petrolomenivka. So that's all from the New York front. We move into the Avdiivka front. In the northern flank of the Avdiivka front, Russian forces harassing Ukrainians over at Kalinove, Novo-Alexandrivka, and Vodyzenka. Particularly in the north of Lozovatsky, Russian forces have made some progress, and fighting was reported at Lysychny. And at Lysychny in particular, there is some interesting information according to the Russian forces, Russian reports. They say that Lysychny may have been captured. So expansion control, no, sorry, it's Serhievka. So Lysychny is not captured, sorry, see wrong. But they say that they knocked the enemy out of Lysychny. So knocking an enemy out of Lysychny, is it a capture? Yeah. We should put announced rumor of capture of Lysychny. So I think that's probably more accurate. So that's why the mapping does not really cover Lysychny yet. So over at the Pokrov sector, at the Pokrov sector, Russian forces attacking at Lysychny, Ivanivka, towards Korodivka. They have captured Serhievka. This is now confirmed both Ukrainian and Russian sources. Russian mapping have shown that they have captured Zeleny. They are now pushing towards Novozeleny and Komishivka. Fighting was reported at Novoselivka, Persia, and the Russian Defense Ministry mentioned Mykolivka in their report. So the Avdiivka front, the Pokrov sector continues to be the main sector that the Russians is launching the offensive. So we just continue to wait and see how this goes. Geolocation of Russian forces of Vasily, confirming the Russians are attacking in the Vasily region, whereas Ukrainian forces is geolocated to be hit by FPV drones south of Komishivka. So that's all from this area. In the southern flank, we have fighting reported at Yasnobrodivka and Kharkivka. So yeah, these salients continue to exist around here. So not sure is due to the merit of the Ukrainian forces or due to the deliberate not wanting to attack on the Russian side. So that's it from the Avdiivka front. Over at the Krasnohorivka region, Russian forces are still attacking in the Krasnohorivka region. We're not sure what's happening right there. There are some attacks reported towards Hostre. So that's all from here. Over at the Vodian-Konstantinivka region, so can I fill in everything? Yes, I can. Russian forces attacking at Konstantinivka, and they are attacking towards Vodian, and fighting was reported near Voleda. So this entire front line continues to be very active. The reports are very subdued. So you can't tell it until the front line changes suddenly show you that the Russians are actually pushing across a very huge front line. This entire front line from Konstantinivka all the way to Voleda is around 15 kilometers. So this is a very, very big line of so we shall see how this continue to develop. Nothing at the Velika Novosilka sector. We move into the Zaporizhia front. There is only fighting reported at Malatomashka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So that's the only one there. So that's it from the Zaporizhia front. We move into the Kherson front. At the Kherson front, there is nothing being reported except some shelling by the Russian Defense Ministry's report, Novotyakhinka and Antonivka. And that's about it. So anyway, that's it. So this is the situation report or the summary for the day of 897 for the 8th of August for the Ukraine war or the special military operation in Ukraine. So do press the like button, subscribe, stay tuned for the KURSK update. Hopefully, you know, I can do, you know, you can see I look a bit sleepy right now. So I'll dig through and start mapping for the next day, which is the 9th of August, which is also the National Day for Singapore. So no, happy National Day. This is the Singapore Lion. To all Singaporeans in the DPA Army, and let's see, you know, how I go with the mapping. I'll see you guys in the next update.